Hey everyone, this is Dylan, and today I'm doing a movie review for you guys. So the movie I'm reviewing today is House of Wax. So welcome to day 2 of the 31 days of Halloween. I hope that you checked out the day number 1, which was my review of Halloween Town. Put a little iCard up there, and there's also going to be a playlist with all the reviews that I put out this month. So definitely make sure to check those out. Let's get into today's review, which is House of Wax. This came out in 2005. Basically came out in the middle of the remake craze of the early 2000s. Let's get into the synopsis. So this revolves around a group of 6 friends who are in college, and they decide that they're going to go to a very popular college football game. I forget the exact name of it. But it's in Louisiana, and they're coming from Florida, and they decide that they're going to road trip there. And so we've got 2 couples. We've got Carly and Wade, Paige and Blake, and then Dalton and Nick, who are not couples, they're friends. Nick is also the twin brother of Carly, who is basically our main character. They're driving and it's getting late, so they decide that they're going to stop and camp out. And during this time, they encounter a person in a truck, and they don't really make friends with them, but they don't really see who it is. So when the wind blows, there's a really terrible smell. And so they wake up the next morning, and it's actually 2 p.m., and they're significantly late. And Wade goes to check his car and realizes that it won't turn on, so he opens the hood and realizes that one of the fan belts has either been snapped or cut, and he's got to find a new one or else he won't be able to go anywhere. And he's like, I'm not going to leave my car, so he tells Blake and Paige and Nick and Dalton to go off and go to the thing, and him and Carly will stay behind and figure out where they're going to get a fan belt. And in the meantime, Carly and Paige go out to the woods to go to the bathroom, and they smell the smell again. So Carly's like, I'm going to go investigate. I want to see what this is. And she ends up falling into this pit of roadkill. They find this guy, and he's basically collects roadkill and throws it into this pit. They ask him whether or not he knows where they can get a new fan belt, and he's like, yeah, I'll just take you to this town that's a couple miles away. It's called Ambrose. So they get to the town, and they realize that things might not be what they seem in this town. So that's where I'm going to leave the synopsis. I first want to start off by saying I think that House of Wax gets so much mistreatment in the horror community that I just don't understand why. So this movie is really pretty good, and I would say it's definitely in the top tier of horror remakes that came out in the early 2000s. I would say it's like this and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and probably some other ones, but those are like the 2 main ones that I think are really good. And so I don't understand necessarily why it gets so much hate. I know that there's a lot of people that really do like this movie, but there's also a lot of people that really don't. So, I mean, I think that there's probably 2 reasons that it came out in the remake craze. But, I mean, this movie is a remake of something from the 50s and the 30s. It's not like something from the 80s, so I think that there can be a lot of gatekeeping when it comes to movies that were remade in like the 70s and the 80s, and that's just kind of the way it is. But I don't know if there's anybody that's like, oh my god, I can't believe they're remaking this movie from the 50s and the 30s, so I don't know. I think that's part of the reason that this gets a little bit of unnecessary hate. And then also the casting of Paris Hilton. And I've never had anything against Paris Hilton. I guess it's just like the public hates her. My family, I grew up kind of watching The Simple Life, the reality show she was on. So I've always kind of really enjoyed her, and I thought that she did a pretty good job in this movie. I didn't really see, I mean, she wasn't the best actress, but she was a pretty decent actress. Alright, so now let's get into more of the movie itself. I haven't seen this movie in a while, and I was actually kind of surprised by how much real body horror we got in this movie. I mean, first and foremost, it's a slasher film, but normal slashers, we don't really get as much body horror in it. And I mean, this isn't anything like a Cronenberg movie or anything like that, but I mean, we have a scene where Carly gets her finger cut off with like some wire cutters. That's pretty horrific, and I would say that there's body horror in that. She also has to pull her lips apart after they've been super glued. That's pretty insane. And then everything that has to do with Wade. Wade is, I mean, this is kind of a spoiler, but this movie's been out for over 15 years, so I think I'm probably fine saying this. But the first person killed is Carly's boyfriend, Wade, and he has, his entire, like, death scene is insane. So he gets, like, his Achilles cut, and then he gets taken down into the basement, and he is, like, I don't even know, he has to have some sort of paralytic injected into him, and then he's put into a device, and then hot wax is sprayed at him. And then once he's actually in the museum, his friend sees him and then starts touching his cheek, and he starts pulling the cheek and realizes that he's just pulling his skin completely off. Like, that's pretty horrific. I think that if this movie were remade nowadays, that it would probably go more towards a body horror lens, because, I mean, the fact of the matter is that all the wax figures in the museum were people, and they had wax put over top of them while they were alive, and so I guess they just died of starvation or suffocation, something like that. But I mean, that's pretty horrific, and that is, if that's not body horror, then I don't know what is. Now I want to talk about the third act, and how this third act is ridiculous. It is such a large set piece, and there is so much going on that it is just so fun to watch. I mean, we have, the stakes are there. Like, there's a ticking clock on everything that is happening in this third act, and I think that adds to, like, the suspension and the tension that's there, because they have a finite amount of time. Like, it's not like it's just a regular movie where there's a limited amount of time. It seems like there's like something is happening and they can't stop it, and so they've got to get out of the wax museum before catastrophe. I really did like the third act of this movie. It does have a bit of a horror trope, I would say, where the ending ends with all the cops and like an investigation starting. I'm sure it's happened in other movies, but like the main movie I think of when I think of that is Scream. I mean, I think one of the issues that I might have with this movie is the script is okay, but there are several like dropped and underused plot holes that occur throughout this movie. Like, there's like this whole subplot about Paris Hilton's character Paige potentially being pregnant, and that like never comes to any type of conclusion or fruition. It just is there. And so that's kind of weird. I mean, that's the real one, but there's definitely a couple other ones in there. And then it might be a little on the nose for some of the things, particularly the twins references. So, I mean, the main two people who are the villains of this movie are twins. The two protagonists of this movie are twins. I mean, it's a pretty on the nose. There's some very on the nose things that happen in the third act. And I'm like, well, I see what you're doing, but I think that it might be a little too much. And then finally, I just want to say that this is a real guilty pleasure of mine. I really love this movie. It's such a fun watch, and I would definitely recommend you guys check it out if you've never seen this before, because it is just a fun ride, that's for sure. And so my rating of this movie is a 4 out of 5 stars, and like I said, I just really liked this. I don't really care if anybody agrees with me or not. I mean, it's just a good time. So that is it for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments down below if you've seen House of Wax and whether you liked it or you didn't like it and why. And remember, if you're not already subscribed and you'd like to be, please hit that subscribe button down below and give this video a like if you liked it. Thank you guys for watching and have a great day. Bye.